What's up, internet? How you doing? It's a garden update numero dos. Alright, so let's answer some of the questions from the previous video, which the first question would be, what's up with this fence? As you guys notice, I put in a pretty extensive fence here, and people were wondering, like, what's the big idea? Like, what's the big deal? Well, first of all, it's going to keep whatever we don't want going directly into the garden area, okay? So, obviously, a fence, generally, will keep the dogs from going in there, or anybody else that we don't really want right away. Now, obviously, that's the most basic explanation of why this giant fence. But we needed to build a new fence for the chicken yard. So the chicken yard area fence is basically for, let's keep the chickens in there when we don't want them into the garden, and keep them into a essentially a contained space and allow them to just kind of occupy their zone. That's kind of a simple explanation of that. And then the rest of this fence is essentially to keep out, you know, the dogs from rummaging around in here or whatever. But the bigger reason is that this fence is built in order to be a giant trellis, essentially. Now, the posts that are up above, we can do hanging pots or anything like that. But let's say that we use these beds right here that have gone in. As you can see, this is kind of one of the old ones. There's some newer ones definitely going in. But let's say that we wanted to do beans here and we want to take them vertically. We can do that here, and we can also utilize the posts to go all the way up to, I believe 7 feet is where they're set right now. But we can do a lot from here to there, and we can even do tension wires running from here to there and take everything up as vertical as we need to go. Our tomato plants last year were about yay high, and it will definitely allow us the availability to do a lot extra as far as like the vertical growth and things go. Now, some of the stuff that we're going to be doing within this space involves you know, we'll probably end up building some strawberry racks and things that will go on this fence. We did use concrete for the posts and all that, so it's a pretty sturdy structure, and we can actually use it on that side also for other things that we may or may not want to do. As we're walking around here, some of the stuff that we've got going on from this last weekend I wanted to highlight a little bit. We've got some of the new raised bed boxes that have gone in. As you can see, we have on the bottom of each one, we actually installed basically our weed carpet. You know, it's that weed blocker that goes onto the bottom of each one. Actually provides good drainage, but it just stops anything from you know, growing up from underneath. Like right here, we actually do have some grass that has seeded over here, but pretty simple construction. They're basically 2x12 box, or the boards are 2x12s. I just broke a little extra schnaz off there. But they're 2x12 construction, really simple. Do some pocket screws, put them together. They don't need to withstand realistically the test of time, because it'll probably change throughout the years. So they're not built to withstand you know, hurricane force or anything like that. But pretty simple construction. I think it's something that just about anybody could put together with some basic tools and stuff. But one of the big reasons for the raised beds is we're going to get a lot of good drainage from them. We're able to maintain you know, good soil and turnover throughout you know, this year, next year, the years following down the road. That's easy to fertilize them. It's really easy to keep track of what's going to be in each one. So if we do tomatoes here this year, we'd want to do squash next year or whatever. We're able to label them and keep track of like where everything was, and then moving forward it's really easy to turn them. Another reason for them is adding compost to them and stuff like that is way easier than adding compost to the whole entire area here and trying to figure out which area has gotten enough, which area hasn't gotten enough. And we can also change which types of soil that we have in each one. So the soil that we have right here, you can see how much darker it is than the other soil that we have in this bed right here. You can actually see the contrast, right? So we have different soils with different soil content. This one actually has a lot of wood and stuff in it, which is a lot better for doing our herbs and stuff like that. Whereas, this kind of black mulchier stuff that's over here is going to be fantastic for, like tomatoes and things. Along those lines. I said it. Now, to all the fish keepers out there that are wondering why this is such a big deal, the way that I feel that this is such a big deal, if we see back here, there's an IBC container, which is a pretty typical water holding unit. Like a lot of people out there utilize these because they can be acquired for about 75 bucks a piece used. You just need to find somebody who's locally bringing in sugar or corn syrup or something like that. Just make sure that they were used for food. You just want to make sure that they were a food grade IBC container. They hold 330 gallons. And let me try to get a better angle here so I can show it to you. You can see that it is a very sturdy container, has a cage around it. You can move it with a forklift, and it comes with a valve on the bottom, and the filling at the top is really easy. And why this is important to the fish keepers, that's where all my water change water ends up. So out of my freshwater planted tanks, when I dump the water out, it lands in there. I'm going to actually be adding 2 more of those for a total of 3, so that we have about 1,000 gallons worth of water from having done water changes. Now, one of the reasons that that's a big deal, all that water change water will water this garden right here. At one point in time, I'm trying to figure out like, hey, what are we going to do with the water change water? Because I don't like to throw it away because I've paid for it. We pay for our water here, and the last thing you want to do is just throw something away that you paid for. You'd like to get full use out of it. And so we take the fresh water, we change it in with our fish, keep them healthy, and then when it's time to dump some water from those, it goes into there, and then it will feed the garden here. And so that's why I feel like it's relatable to the fish fam or the fish keeping community and stuff like that. Maybe this is something that you might want to set up in your neck of the woods. We're definitely putting in the time and energy to being able to do this so that most people would be able to do stuff like this. We don't have a ton of property here. I think we have just over 1/2 of an acre. It's kind of a big residential lot, but we're definitely in a neighborhood. House right next to me right there. We're in a neighborhood, and this is probably pretty close to what most people have in the United States. If you live in a house, you live somewhere, maybe it's even a rental, this is the kind of stuff that even you could do at a rental and then take it with you later on. You might have to build the boxes a little sturdier along the base, so that if you were gonna like pick them up and move them later, you could take them with you. But we're trying to build a system here that that most people in the United States would be able to pull off, for instance, because I live in the United States, so I try to make an example of like what I think most people would be able to pull off on a reasonable budget, doing most of the labor yourself, and just creating a better environment for just the sustainability of life, realistically. And the way that Vicky and I look at it, if we can put some energy in like this, and have a lot of our food locally sourced. We're reusing as much of our water as possible without throwing it down the drain. It's just going to be an overall better lifestyle, and not even to mention the fact that it's way nice out here during the summertime when you have a ton of food growing, and just being able to experience the nature and things like that. But here's a good example of some of the stuff right out front of the fence on this side, because we do want to keep this kind of stuff separate. It makes it a lot easier to just kind of come through here and weed whack, you know, on this side. But here's a perfect example. We don't need to go to the store for rosemary. We've got a big old rosemary bush right here, and one rosemary bush, not only does it smell great, but it also is going to be enough for a whole entire family, and we don't ever have to buy rosemary from the store. So I think this is just a perfect example right here. Over there we've got our blueberry stuff, which is going to be a bunch of videos messing around with those and getting those set up later. They do produce really well from those pots, but we do have some we definitely are going to be taking that blueberry stuff to the next level coming up this year. So but I feel like I've rambled on long enough, and maybe I answered some questions, maybe I've created some more questions. So hopefully I'll be able to be answering those for you guys in the coming up. If you're not subscribed, I guess subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you do have a question, or if you're just gangbusters for this kind of stuff. So let me know what's happening in your neck of the woods, and I'll holla at you later. Where's that button?